but we're going to talk about something very interesting, which is, business opportunities and climate actions. So we're talking about private sector's actions, balancing economics, ecological, and social benefits. So that's, can be quite interesting and challenging, and as well insightful to understand the stories behind those. This event is organized by the Secretariat of the Indonesia Pavilion in partnership with Forest Concession Association, IPB University, and Systemic Partner. And without further ado, I believe we already have all of the speakers here. And I would like to invite our moderator for today, Mr. Widarmika Agung from Systemic Partner. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Widarmika Agung.
Good evening, everyone. Selamat sore, and would like to greet the distinguished member of Parliament, Ibu Luluk. Selamat datang, Ibu. And I would like to greet our participant online. And it's day four of COP, right? I guess a warm kind of applause for everyone who are still here, right? Who are still here, who are still learning, and who are still showing a good spirit on trying to accelerate the transition into a net zero, nature positive, and more inclusive kind of economy. So thank you everyone for being here today. So it's a pleasure for me to be the moderator for today's sessions on business opportunities and climate actions, balancing economic, ecological, and social benefits. As we know, in all sectors of business, it has been a huge challenge to transform, right, to a net zero, nature positive, and to have a more inclusive model. And we've been hearing a lot in kind of the energy sector, the just energy transitions. Is actually the same for the land use sectors. So today in our session we'll focus on the land use sectors. We are going to hear from the pioneers, right? Some of the business people, the distinguished panelists today are the pioneers who are looking at this as an opportunity, right? The transition is an opportunity, and they've been pioneering in the effort to incubate and to scale such solutions. A business model in land use that is providing economic benefits, but also ecological and social benefits. And to start with, I would like to invite Ibu Luluk Nur Hamidah, the Secretary General of Women Caucus at the Indonesian House of Representatives, to open our sessions. And we know it's an important topic for women, as climate issues impacted very much more women compared to men, right? So thank you for being with us. Please, if you can come forward and open our session. Thank you, Ibu.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Selamat sore dan salam sejahtera untuk semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Minister of Environment and Forestry, Republic of Indonesia. Honorable Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry, Republic of Indonesia, honorable fellow speakers, and also the moderators, honorable participants, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to show my gratitude to attending said event in this beautiful venue, Pavilion Indonesia. I also would like to thank to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry for the invitation to contribute on this side event. Before starting my speech, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Luluk Nur Hamidah, Member of Parliament, Republic of Indonesia, specifically Commission on Agriculture, Forestry and Environment, Fisheries and Marine, and also Secretary General of Women Caucus, Indonesian Parliamentarian. And also today I accompanied by my fellow friends, my beloved friend Miss Emma Husna, as a member of Indonesian Parliamentary Women Caucus as well. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is one of the serious problems that faced by the global community today. According to the World Bank, several regions in Indonesia are vulnerable due to climate change. The side effects include that food production from agriculture and marine disrupted. Climate change causes crop failure, fishermen cannot go to the sea, and climate change also causes catastrophic events such as droughts, flood, landslide storm, forest fires, and also has an impact on human health. The impact of climate change is perceived differently between men and women. UN Habitat also states that climate change has different impact on marginalized minority groups, men and women in gender relations, as well as on children and elderly. Referring to the research from the London School of Economics, female victims were 4 times higher than male victims due to differences in economic and social rights. KIARA, the Indonesian NGOs for People Coalition for Fishery and also Coastal Justice, they also mentioned that women bear a double burden, even more, especially those who are living in coastal areas and also in agriculture. This makes women experience obstacles to gain access to resources, both natural resources or forestry, economic resources, and even political resources. On the other hand, even climate change could have an impact on the rise of gender-based violence, including sexual violence, sexual transaction, and the sex trafficking experienced by women, and of course, poverty. Truthfully, women have the potential, knowledge, and experience in managing natural resources to meet the need of their families. For women who live in surrounding areas and or in forest areas, for example, women see the forest as if they see their bodies, which must be protected and sovereign. Otherwise, forests provide life and source of livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak dan Ibu, saudara-saudara sekalian, therefore, for centuries, women have living in harmony with nature and with their wisdom in maintaining biodiversity, planting plants for medicine, and many more. However, this condition have been changed because of the process of destruction for the sake of economic interest and unsustainable investment. Moreover, I want to emphasize here that all non-inclusive economic or business activities which ignore the principle of ecological justice, gender justice, and unsustainable condition are immoral act and crime against environment and humanity. Women's vulnerability to climate change has not been simultaneous with gender perspective policies. Women are less likely to be involved in decision-making or policy process. Although the issues of gender integration and climate change are already contained in several international documents, but other efforts are needed in order to ensure that women resilience to climate change. And for those reasons, the effort needs to be made to mainstreaming gender into climate change, adaptation, and mitigation policies, both in planning, preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluating, including climate change financial. It will ensure that women are not only the vulnerable groups and those who suffer the most, but also as agents of change for all climate action. Ladies and gentlemen, on the other hand, I also admitted the government of Indonesia already developed several great activities and related to climate change, adaptation, and mitigation that are gender responsive, including Food Independent Village Program, which is carried out through the development of cottage industries for local food, the application of appropriation technology for local food processing, and the development of potential source and local raw material. And the second, the Sustainable Food Shelter Area Program, which is carried out through the use of yard land, as well as counseling on healthy food and family resilience. And the third, Energy Independent Village Program, which is carried out through the development of clean water reservoirs, maintenance of water seat, maintenance of other water source, and development of appropriate technology for water treatment. However, other efforts still are needed to ensure women's resilience to climate change so they are not left behind. In my view, at least there are 5 things stakeholders can do. First, recognize the social impact from any unsustainable and inclusive economic and investment in climate change and respond to the risks faced by the most vulnerable. And the second, involve women in the design, implementation, and assessment of climate strategies. And the third, support women to learn the skill they need to respond to the impact of the climate crisis, to take a leading role in climate action, and to hold leaders accountable. And the fourth, realizing climate justice so that richest countries, historically responsible for the most emission, provide support for the people and communities most affected by the climate crisis. And the fifth, mainstreaming gender budgeting policies for climate action. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu, saudara-saudara sekalian, by the end of my speech, I would like to emphasize that all business and investment should not only think about how to gain huge profit, but also to create a balance between ecological justice, social justice, and gender justice. Thank you. Wallahul muwafiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mas.
Thank you so much, Ibu Luluk. It's really an energizing opening. So thank you, Ibu Luluk, for a fantastic opening. And thank you for reminding us about the urgency of acting around climate. Thank you for reminding us that the impact on climate is 4 times higher for women. Thank you for reminding us that the involvement of women in the debate and finding the solutions and implementation is very important. And with that, let's take a time to give a big round of applause to remember the kind of the role of strong women everywhere around the world. So a big round of applause. Thank you. With that, we're going to transition to the next sessions, which is the panel discussions. We will start with presentations by Pak Silverius Oscar Unggul, or famously known as Pak Onte. He is the Deputy Chairperson for the Environment and Forestry in Indonesian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN, known as KADIN. Yes, KADIN is the official partner of the government of Indonesia that is actually conveying the voice of the business community in Indonesia. So with that, I would invite Pak Onte to the stage. You will have 10 minutes for your presentations. Please.
Usually. Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu sekalian. I will present it what KADIN was do. Business opportunity and climate action, balancing economics, ecological, and social benefit. Next, please. Next. Okay, I think I start with this slide. I will mention we face the global issue and challenges in terms of climate change, deforestation, illegal logging, smuggling, degenerative forests. Because of that, I think we have the pressing need for change with increase the sustainability regulation. Now we know so many standards, yeah, requirement of product certification, etc. Yeah, and also increased pressure from shareholder and customer. So in business, I think if we don't follow the sustainability way, I think market will leave us behind, investment will leave us behind. That's why private sectors want to respond, yeah, these particular problems. Next, please. According of the World Economic Forum, they said, yeah, business that participate in global effort for climate change mitigation could increase profit and growth, increase business resilience, show value-based relationship to customer, talent, and other stakeholders. This is according of World Economic Forum. Next, please. And at the same time, I think we seeing the momentum for business to contribute to forestry solution all over the world. We can see this. So many companies try to make good effort for our forest. Yeah, in Amazon, sporting forest through right now, climate fund, yeah, $100 million, for example. Apple, protecting 11,000 hectares of mangrove forest in Cambodia. For Apple, I know the story behind. First, they try to looking for in Indonesia because maybe we already know 80% tin used by Apple is come from Bangka Belitung Island in Indonesia. But at the time, I think maybe they get a problem, I don't know, and then they go to Cambodia. And many companies try to make good effort in forest. Next. So, what happened in Indonesia? In Indonesia, when Pak Arsyad Rashid, the chairman of KADIN, elected as a chairman last year, the tagline of KADIN is inclusive and collaborative. Inclusive means KADIN's not only doing one sectors, but all sectors. And KADIN is big home, not only for big company, but also for the middle, even the cooperative, even social entrepreneur. So under this, the spirit of inclusivity, we found the opportunity, yeah, by the law of job creation, number 11, 2020. In forestry, we now multi-purpose businesses permit. If before, if you have permit for timber, you only can doing timber. But now, we can doing multi-purpose businesses in one concession. That's why, under this regulation, we can talking about food from forest. We can talking about energy from forest. We can talking about pharmaceutical from forest. Even we can talking about fabric, yeah, for the shirt from forest. That's why KADIN believe with the multi-purpose businesses, we can improve livelihood, we can improve our biodiversity, economic performance, of course, and then climate mitigation. KADIN want to use this opportunity and we build a hub. We call it Regenerative Forest Business Hub. Next, please. This is the basic idea of Indonesian Chambers of Commerce about the Regenerative Forest Business Hub. Use the opportunity by the regulation. In the left, we can see the idle lands, conflicts there, property there, degraded land there, and then we want to transform, become a regenerative forest business, because better local livelihood, improve financial business performance, and etc. This is we want to do with this hub, and this initiative come from private sectors in Indonesia, and of course with the full support of the government of Indonesia. Next, please. This is a little bit about the regenerative forest and what KADIN vision, Indonesian Chambers of Vision, vision of regenerative forest hub. Indonesian regenerative forestry business can contribute to social, economic, and ecological improvement, as well as Indonesia's sustainable development goals, including Indonesia, FOLU, and NDC. That is the vision of this hub in Indonesian Chambers of Commerce. Next, please. What we are do in regenerative business hub. First, we do learning. We learning each other. Share learning about the opportunities of business case in agroforestry, non-timber forest product, also the environmental services, as well as the use of forest area other than for timber. Second, we learning to understand financial feasibility and financing scheme. The second is dialogue. Organize multi-stakeholders national dialogues, between all stakeholders, government, NGOs, businesses, academia, and others. And then facilitate partnership with stakeholders. And the third we do is implementation. We are trying to looking for the champions, the company, members of Indonesian Chambers of Commerce, be pioneers for implement this regenerative forest business hub. Next. Some primary funding about the opportunities. We already 6 months to do this, or 6 or 7 months. And this is some primary funding about the opportunities in regenerative forest business in Indonesia. First, Indonesia has about 20 million hectares potential for regenerative forest business, including 4 million from social forestry. Second, research finding identified 5 prospective commodities, vanilla, cocoa, coffee, arenga sugar, and essential oil. This is very potential to do, in regenerative way. And we have found the findings. If only 1% the area, let's say maybe 200,000 hectares intercrop with vanilla, it will be earn net cash flow of 7.5 billion US dollar a year. This is a very huge of money. And the second funding is interesting, If we combine cacao and coffee together, the amount is 50 billion US dollars. This is equivalent with our palm oil. Coffee and cacao is equivalent with palm oil. This is a huge potential too. The third, implementing agroforestry system could increase resilience to climate change, regulate water, increase biodiversity and carbon stock, diversity in incomes over price fluctuation, with careful selection of the seed species. Yield from can be maximized. Next, please. Okay, this is stakeholders working together in regenerative forest business hub in KADIN. Of course, Minister Environment and Forestry. They are APHI too. APHI is Forest Concessionaires Association in Indonesia. And then off-taker, KADIN, KADINDA is Indonesian Chambers of Commerce have office in each province in Indonesia. So we call it in Bahasa Indonesia KADINDA. And then developer, and then expert and consultant. This is the stakeholders involved in this initiative. Next, please. Next step, I think we really to implement the program, and we're looking for the company who will be champions, who will be the pioneers for this. At least we already have 3 companies, yeah, at least, yeah. And then we will start to implement the piloting with the 3 champions. Next, please. And then this recommendation, there are recommendation for the landowners atau concessionaires, atau in bahasa. And then recommendation for finance sector, and recommendation for off-taker, and recommendation for policymaker. Next, please. Thank you. Sorry for quite speed ya, because the time. But my leader ini sudah setengah mati karena bahasa Inggris terus. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, fantastic presentations. Always very clear and inspiring. Thank you, Pak Unte. So thank you for kind of framing this as an opportunity, framing the transition as an opportunity, right? Pak Unte kind of remind us that the market is moving. Right? The direction is toward more regenerative, more balance between ecological and economic and more inclusive kind of business. And also, thank you for highlighting that this effort is aligned with the government kind of effort as well, with the new regulation that is in place, the multi-use business license. And that, thank you for sharing the vision of KADIN, right? Really trying to accelerate the process so that Indonesia can have regenerative forest businesses or regenerative forest economy as one of the pillars for the future. And if this happens, this is also contributions to the world, as we've been listening to the various kind of sessions earlier today. So thank you for that. And with that spirit, as mentioned by Pak Onte, I think this session is about also learning from others, right? So I would like to invite our panelists, right, distinct panelists. Firstly, I will check, because we have our one panelist, Pak Purwadi Suprihanto, who's joining us online. Can I check? Can I greet Pak Purwadi if you are able to join us today?
Yes, Pak Widar.
Can you hear?
Nice to see you, Pak. Good evening, Pak. It's clear?
I think it's very late for you. Thank you for making such effort.
Yes.
So
yeah, thank you, Pak.
Thank you so much. Pak Pur, can you briefly introduce to the audience today, not all are Indonesians, who is RFBSH? Pak Pur, who is API?
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Widar. Good evening, everyone, distinguished guests, client participant. My name is Purwadi Supriyanto. I'm the Secretary General of the Association of Indonesian Forest Concessionaire. We have around 500 members covering natural forest concessionaire, plantation forest concessionaire, and also ecosystem restoration. But now we transform to timber product, to non-timber product and environmental services, and also timber product, of course. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting API in very valuable event. In the context of ecosystem regenerative business forest, we are in the upstream. So it is very important for us how we integrate under KADIN's member from upstream to downstream. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak. And I think if I remember correctly, I think the members of APHI or API probably represent more than 1 million hectares of concession areas, Pak. Yeah.
Yes, sure, Pak. Yeah. So, we manage 30 million hectares.
Yeah, so
in
it's
Indonesia.
A significant part of the effort. If you wanna do transitions fast, we need to involve kind of your members as well. Thank you for participating. Then I would like to invite our other distinguished panelists, Ms. Juliana Tinoco. Can I invite you to the? Yeah. Oh, is it better? Okay, to the right. Thank you.
Hello? Can you hear me? Yes.
So, Juliana is the Regional External Relations Partnership of Partnership for Forests program in Latin America. To start with, if you can share a little bit about the P4F program in Latin America before we have further discussion. Please, Juliana.
Sure. Thank you, Widar. Thank you, everyone. It's a huge pleasure for me to be here joining Indonesian peers to talk about this great issue. And sadly, I'm probably the only person in the room who hasn't been to Indonesia, but most definitely want to come as soon as possible. So I work for a UK-funded program called Partnerships for Forests. It's a program that operates globally, supporting initiatives and accelerating businesses' opportunities in forest areas, with the goal to reduce deforestation and also work with the restoration sector. So very much linked with the whole regenerative, regeneration of forest conversation. And our work in Latin America, we operate in Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. I think we're currently in about 35 initiatives or businesses already being supported by the program, current 22 live grants. So we are a grant-making program, but with, we like to say, an impact investment lens. So a little bit of how does that translate on the ground. I would like to share maybe 3 very quick examples of the value chains we've been working and very inspired by the Regenerative Forest Business Hub already. When we look at a strategy for forest-based products, a very interesting product that we have in Brazil, for example, is Brazil nuts. And the name says Brazil nuts, but funny enough, the main exporter of Brazil nuts is not Brazil, it's Bolivia. So the work that we've been doing, for example, to find pioneers that have been working to create niche brands of Brazil nuts that have strong stories behind it, stories that protect indigenous communities, that protect smallholders in the Amazon. So working to accelerate and incubate those businesses, but also strengthening their relationship with their suppliers of nuts, who are ultimately the indigenous themselves, were protecting the forests. So this is one model. Another interesting model that we work has a lot to do with how we foster innovation in this arena. So there is a company in Colombia called Ecoflora who's been managing to work with Jagua genipapo, which is an Amazonian fruit that actually, when you put it in your hand, it makes you blue. It makes your hand turn black. And it sticks, and it's used for like tattoos, and it's used for like colors in general. But what they've managed to do is to, using innovation and technology, develop the usage of that for colorant for the food industry. So now very much advanced into entering US markets. And then what does that translate on the ground is that they're restoring degraded lands in Colombia, their former pasture lands, with this tree that will ultimately give the company their source to develop this very innovative product. And finally, just wanted to share a few on like a more regenerative approach. We've been working with cocoa smallholders in the southeast of Pará, in the Brazilian Amazon, which is a high deforestation hotspot for us. And the way this program works is a multi-stakeholder partnership involving the chocolate industry, the trader, technical assistance on the ground, the credit bank, the national bank in Brazil for credit, and a huge network of smallholders. They're now restoring, again, degraded pasture lands with cocoa in agroforestry systems. So yeah, I think those are like a few of the flavors of the work we do in Latin America.
No, thank you, Juliana, and thank you for kind of helping us understand that Partnership for Forest is it's an incubator, right? That try to incubate and scale businesses that has positive impact on forest. I'm sure there's a lot of learning we can have from Latin America. I think just yesterday, right? I think yesterday there was this big announcement about partnership between Brazil, Congo, Indonesia around mangrove. So always good to have this South and South collaborations. Very positive. Great to have you here today. The next panelist is Mr. Felipe Vilela. If I can invite you to the stage as well. A round of applause. He is the founder of Renature. And to start with, Felipe, if you can share briefly about who Renature is so that we can know you and your company better, please.
Oh, terima kasih for the invitation to be here. That's all my Indonesian skills. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Felipe. I'm from Brazil. I'm the founder of Renature. Renature is a Dutch organization supporting farmers and corporates in the transition to regenerative agriculture and forestry. And I saw ForestWise as one of the partners. We are working also with the rubber agroforestry systems with ForestWise. I think part of this regenerative forestry initiative, and much more to talk there. So yeah, I have been working in Indonesia for already more than 4 years with farmers from Sulawesi to Bangka Island to Bali, also to Bogor, in different kind of crops, from cocoa to coffee to palm oil to pepper. But let me first just introduce Renature. So Renature is basically providing technical assistance, measuring impact indicators from soil organic carbon to biodiversity increase, to women empowerment, to economic performance, as well as supporting farmers with access to premium prices in the markets and access to carbon markets as well. So basically we're doing that in the global south, so from Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, where deforestation rates and also the land degradation rates are going rapidly. So mostly Brazil, Mexico, Ivory Coast, Kenya, and Indonesia. And we are providing, making sure that we can build a very strong business case around regenerative agriculture and forestry to show how economically viable it is for farmers to transition and scale such practices. Today we are impacting over 170,000 hectares, aiming to 1.4 million hectares by next year, and also supporting over 60,000 farmers and reaching around more than 330 by next year. So our aim is to reach 2% of total farmers transition by 2035, which equals to 100 million hectares and 10 million farmers. And in Indonesia, we have been working with agroforestry, cocoa, coffee, and such crops that has a huge impact on the environment, and build carbon credits projects with, for example, Rabobank and Microsoft, where we did a pilot in Brazil, Kenya, and Indonesia, where we can really enhance payment for ecosystem services between farmers who are including the forest in their agricultural systems, and making sure we have a more bigger income coming from like natural payment for ecosystem service. So that's a bit about Renature. There's much more, but I'm happy to go for the discussion.
Thank you, appreciate it. So Renature is really the enablers, right, that enables the transition to happen faster. We can only move as fast as the capability we have on the ground. And just everyone, this is super exciting to have all the panelists today, right? Because they are the pioneers. We've been hearing pledges from big food industries, right? Pledges about regenerative sourcing, pledges about carbon neutrality, right? But that will not happen without people in the background as pioneers building the value chain, right? Pledges will only stay as pledges unless there's a solutions behind it. And these people, like, you know, all three of them are actually pioneering. 4 of them, sorry, Pak Pur, are pioneering, or at least in the effort of trying to create solutions to move pledges into reality. So, to start with, as mentioned, the spirit by Pak Onte is really trying to improve the program, right? Allow me to start with Pak Pur. Pak Pur, as the member of APHI, right, representing APHI, right? Sorry. This is very embarrassing. This is very embarrassing. Really sorry. We have another distinguished speakers. I should notice this because when I was speaking, I saw one of the participant took a picture with Professor Dodik Ridho Nur Ahmad. Professor Dodik, I think would like to invite you to the stage. If you can come to the stage. And apologies again. I really thought that after 4 times doing this, I'm getting better. Professor Dodik Ridho Nur Ahmad is a professor at Bogor Agricultural University of Indonesia, right? And Bogor Agricultural University in Indonesia is a leading university around agriculture and forestry. Many of our ministers, right, came from the universities. Many of our kind of leading business people also in the sector came from the university. And to start with, Professor Dodik, can you share more about the university?
Actually, I have a presentation.
Ah, okay. So another things to be better off. So happy to go to presentations. Shall go directly to the presentations, please. And I think you can take the podium to present, Pak, please.
No problem. Bisa ditayangkan, Pak. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good evening, everybody. I am Dodik Ridho Nur Ahmad from IPB University Bogor, Indonesia. I would like to share about how to promoting forest multi-purposes for a better life. Next. Forest multi-purposes is very important for the target of Holu net sink. Holu is forest and other land use net sink by 2030. We have to achieve the agenda of Holu net sink by following the national development goals that are first justice, and the second one welfare, and the third one sustainable. And we have to also follow the scientific approaches, like and the agenda have to logic and systematic. Logic means rational or empirical. It is a logic. And then the last one, following the reduction emission target, with is measurable, evidence-based, and achievable. Next, please. And we have to emphasize that here, justice is much more important rather than equality. Equality doesn't mean justice. So our goals here, we are attending here is climate justice, not climate equality. This is equality, and this one is justice. Why I speak about that? Next. If we talk about equality, Indonesia is claimed as the most emitters country in the world because our people, our inhabitants, our population is more than 270 million people. But if we talk about the emission per capita or per capita emission, then we look here that our per capita emission, Indonesia per capita emission is only 2.03 ton per capita per year. So only about 2 ton per capita per year. And the average emission per capita per year is 4.4. So according to the emission per capita, Indonesia is less than half of the average emission of the world emission per capita. And how about the other? Yeah, you can see that the highest one is Qatar. Yeah, Qatar is almost 40 ton per capita per year. Yeah, that 37 point something, and the Europe, US usually 15-20 ton per capita per year. So if we would like to achieving the threshold, the target, yeah, of the reducing emission in the world, yeah, in 2060, like a Paris Agreement, then we have to talk about the emission per capita. It is, what I mean is the climate justice, because I think we are already in the right track. Our government already enacted the target by reducing emission by 29% with our capacity, our internal capacity, and 41% by supporting of international agency. It is good. But just imagine if Indonesia with a per capita emission 2 ton and then reducing by, let's say, 30%, not 29%, 30%, then the rest is 1.3%. And the other countries, the developed country with per capita emission 15 ton, for example, 15 ton, and reduce the same percentage, 30%, then the remaining is still 15 minus 5, 10%. So 10 times still higher, still very far from the average per capita emission. So think about the right to emit of every people in the world. We have the same right to emit, to reduce the emission also. So, next. Yeah, this is the evidence from many countries that the per capita emission has a very, a close correlation with GDP per capita. So, I mean that for me, for us who stay here, I do agree that we have to reduce the emission. But if we talk about our brother, our sister in the remote area of Papua, of Kalimantan, that they are life very simple, that I think it is not fair for them if we have to, we ask them to reduce emission for our people in the remote area of Papua, of Kalimantan, and so on. Next. And this is the simulation, yeah, of what we call is a green development. We try to reduce the emission in Jayapura district and Papua until 2031. And yes, there is the emission, yeah, emission with the simulation will decrease, yeah, simultaneously, but at the same time, the GDP also decrease. So I think it is not a good development. It is wrong. It is wrong. So we have to try to find, yeah, another strategy that reduce the emission, but at the same time also increasing the per capita income. Next. And yeah, this is a bit theoretic. Yeah, we talk about the environmental Kuznets curve. Indonesia still in the left side of the Kuznets curve, not in the turning point. So it is different with the developed country that has already in the right side, already in the right of the turning point. Next. And this is our simulation. If we just make a business as usual, then we didn't reach the high income country in 2045, like the target of the President Joko Widodo. But and at the same time also we will lose our forest, and remaining only 55 million hectare in about 2045, very early. So we have to do something. So I think the initiative of the KADIN, such as regenerative forest business, have to be appreciated. It is a very good program and idea. We have to do something to improve the productivity of our forests, because as you know that forest in Indonesia covering the area of 66%, about 66%. But then the contribution to the national GDP only 0.6%, even less than 1%. I think it must be something wrong there. And it causes for forest conversion, or call it deforestation. So one of the most effective way to avoiding deforestation is improving the productivity of forests, increasing the revenue from forests. And one of the the promoting program is multi-purpose business of forests. Next. And this one is regenerative forest business. The regenerative forest business here, so this is degraded lands and degraded forests, and by the activities of regenerative forest business, we can increasing the carbon stock, and at the same time we can create the business. I just visited last week and last 2 weeks in several areas in Central Java, West Java, and also in Lampung, Sumatra, that it is proven, it was proven that actually the multi-purpose of forests gaining the revenue 100 times higher than only timber. So we have to think about regenerative forest business, and as the name, this project should be light on the degraded forest, not touch the virgin forest, the primary forest. We didn't touch the primary forest, but we have to focus to improve the degraded forest, because in Indonesia we have 35 million hectare of degraded forest lands. Next. And I think it is a nice picture of the agroforestry, oil palm based agroforestry. We have a 15 years research collaboration with the University of Göttingen, Germany, and University of Jambi, and also University of Tadulako in Palu, about the transformation of the land system in Jambi. And it is 4 years after enrichment planting, the oil palm with some forest trees, like durian, fruit trees, jengkol, dog fruits, pete, and then sungkai, Peronema canescens, and some other species. And it is good, I think, to be a bridge, as ecological function and economic function. Next. And this is in Lampung, in the conflicting area, already about more than 40 years conflicting, this forest area. And then since about 5 years ago, the Ministry of Forestry offering the people to growing fruit trees, not only in the traditional forest trees like Meranti, or Sorea, but also avocado, durian, Durian zipetinus, and then also kelapa, cocoa, It's not sawit. This is not oil palm, but coconuts, coconuts, coconuts is by FAO definition and also Ministry of Forestry, including still the tree species, and this other species mixed there, lada and so on, pepper crops and so on. It is very rich, I think, and giving a very high economic value to the forest. Next, I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dodik. It's really, really good not to miss your presentations. Great. Thank you for setting up the context, and apologies again. So thank you for reminding us that what we are doing is thinking about just, right? Climate justice, right? And so therefore we need to think about how we can protect the forest, but also still providing economic benefit. And from your observations and your research, it is possible. It is possible, right? So, and that gives kind of a comfort to us, and be more hopeful that it's a North Star that is worth to pursue, right? So, with that, allow me to go to Pak Pur, if you are still with us, Pak Pur. Just checking because it's very late, Indonesia.
Please remind me if I get sleep.
No, I think it was me who was not concentrating enough. You are still very, very good. So, Pak Pur, you've been hearing about the KADIN's presentations. You also have been hearing from our distinct panelists about the opportunities, right?
Yes.
And also from Professor Dodik, right, that it is possible. Please share with us as business, as representative of business communities in the forest concession areas. How do you see these opportunities, right? And what are the challenges to realize this opportunity? Please, Pak Pur.
Yeah. Can I share a brief presentation, Pak? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, it's clear, Pak?
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Widar, distinguished guests, Khaled, and participant. Good evening. Yeah, I'd like to present challenge and opportunity of forestry business. To participate in the global climate change mitigation action to implementing regenerative forest business. It's quite easy for me because Pak Onte has already presented the principle, the spirit of regenerative approach. So I'd like to encourage the other issue, how the challenge and the opportunity, of course. In this slide, as we understand that there are significant changes in forest management after the issuance of Act number 11, year 2000, regarding the Job Creation Act. Currently, forest should be managed based on a forest landscape ecosystem approach with huge possibility to integrate the utilization of timber, non-timber, forest product and environment services that will, we call it, multi-forestry businesses. So in the context of sustainable forest management and the pillar of ecology, social and economy, so it should be addressed to how we encourage ecologically sensible and socially acceptable and economically feasible that will be linked with the optimization of all our forest products as the mandate of Job Creation Act. That is actually the basis of regenerative of forest business. With regard of the context, all of the forest MAU, you're right, Pak, we manage around 30 million hectares, consisting natural forest plantation, forest ecosystem restoration. Here we are, and will be directed to multi-forestry business. And by doing so, it will be relevant to put the role of the FMU to support Indonesia in hand NDC and Indonesian Swallow Net Sink 2030. The question is, how do we shift the paradigm? We will be dealing with the land management technique, commodities, and the changes of a business ecosystem as well, covering market, financing, supply chain, and etc. So connecting the multi-forestry business as the basis of regenerative forest with the INDC and IFNET, so will be related to the mitigation actions. The key driver of mitigation action, as you see in this table, will be forest plantation development and forest and land rehabilitation. Both are designated at degraded forest and land area. So to achieve net sink volume 2030, you can see we need 7.9 million hectares to be rehabilitated. It's very progressive target and needs strong effort to achieve it. What we are supposed to do? What do we have to do to achieve this target? So remaining quota, we still have 7.9 million hectares. It's the part of the important key mitigation action to achieve net sink volume 2030. So in practical ways, I would say that land management technique is a key factor. So agroforestry can be an approach. Basically, I would say that 7.9 million hectares I stated previously cannot be achieved with the business as a usual approach, because most of the area are facing with land tenure problem. So here are some underlying reason why it is very important to address agroforestry as an approach. First, it's going to be a model for social engineering, conflict resolution, and improving livelihood, need for land optimization and strengthening competitiveness of forestry sector, addressing land degradation, creating shared value and circular economy, increasing diversity and resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, we attended a COFO meeting last month in Rome. So a part of the issue is about the how address the agroforestry as the model to support climate change, to support mitigation action, because it is the base a part of climate change mitigation. So this afternoon, I also met the representative of FAO in Jakarta, and we understand and agree that based on the surveillance of FAO in August 22nd, there are strengths and challenges. According to the FAO assessment regarding the implementation of agroforestry, the strengths cover 3 forest management. We're still dealing with 3, of course: agroforestry and climate change mitigation, forest and land landscape restoration, community engagement is the key factor. Meanwhile, there are some challenges and gaps. How we are dealing with the economy of agroforestry. So it's dealing with profitable business plan, an economic model, managing investment risk, market, and value chain of economy. So, on the key conclusion, I would say that how our task to bring the forest agroforestry toward economically viable. And dear colleague in Indonesia, I think we understand and agree that the fact funding by FAO also happen in Indonesia, and the situation is very similar in Indonesia with the other country as found by FAO in this assessment. So Obviously, in the context of economically, I would say that agroforestry model for a generative forest has to cover input, process, and output. By doing so, it will attract the investment and ensure the return of investment and reinvestment as well. I should create value chain from landowner, a community as a partner, and then processing unit, and off-taker, and eventually the market both domestically and globally. Last but not least, all the ecosystem only can work with a strong support of financing scheme. So in the last slide, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to point out that the enabling condition needed to encourage multi-forestry business as the basis up to implement regenerative forest business. So the first is we really admit and appreciate what KADIN initiative as a hub to facilitate and respond multi-forestry business. So we are really concerned with the commodity selection and business ecosystem as part of sustainable forest management, because we are a part of the KADIN member. It will be very important for us to connect it to the other sector like agriculture, like energy, and etc., and also food and industry of energy. So it's very important for KADIN to put the role to connect as a hub from one sector to the other sector. The second thing, how to encourage capacity building from landowner, community, and knowledge management, because it's very important. Because I agree with Eva found that the knowledge management, how to encourage multi-forestry business through agroforestry is still to be encouraged. The next one is how to develop partnership and inclusive business. Yeah, we understand that it cannot be done, it cannot be executed to deal with 7.9 million hectares without the inclusive business, because most of the area is having general problem. And the next one in how to integrate upstream and downstream of forestry business development. And the important thing also is how to develop blended financing scheme on mixed commodities. Yeah. And the next one is how to intensify coordination across ministerial, institution, and central, and also local government. And the last thing, how to create incentives. Yeah, tax holiday, tax, non-tax government, carbon economic value, and also a policy formulation. That's I will stop here, Pak Widar, and let's get the discussion later on. Thank you, Pak. Halo, Pak Widar. Can you hear me, Pak?
Hello, Pak Pur?
Yeah. Can you still hear me, Pak?
Yes, we can still hear you very clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pak Pur.
I stopped my presentation. My presentation, Pak. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, to the panelists, if I may go to Felipe, right? Felipe, you've heard from Pak Pur that one of the challenges is the economics of going regenerative, right? Especially if for the concession owners, the approach is new, right? The process is new, and at least perceive that the economics might not work. And I understand that you've worked in many countries applying the regenerative agriculture approaches in multitude of scales, right? What's your view on the economics and how to solve it if it is a problem, please?
Perfect. Terima kasih, and it's a pleasure to be talking about the economics of agroforestry and regenerative forestry systems. I think there's major five benefits economically for such practices. One is a very simple one, which is by transitioning from conventional monoculture to regenerative and agroforestry systems. You start reducing the overall external input costs, so moving away from synthetic fertilizers to biological, or even using the trees and also grasses. You start replacing such needs and costs, high costs farmers are having, especially with the war in Ukraine, fertilizer costs going really high of these such inputs. So that's first thing, so reduction of such costs. Secondly is also diversification of income through ecosystem services. So now with the carbon as one of the assets, environmental assets, and biodiversity as well coming up, we're doing a pilot on biodiversity credit with coffee farmers. So coffee farmers can be rewarded by the increase of pollinators, birds, insects, which is a very interesting case for us to start monetizing other ecosystem services and going beyond carbon. Thirdly is also diversification of crops. As farmers move away from monoculture, they start producing timber and fruits, nuts, and all these crops can have an added value also priced in the market, showing farmers that it's not about the yields of that specific cash crop, but it's about the profitability of that hectare, having a more holistic view on how we can actually enhance the economics of farmland. And the most important one that proves the economic benefits of regenerative forestry and agroforestry is the climate resilience gap. What does it mean, climate resilience gap? We have seen huge impacts of yields decrease on coffee to cocoa to every single large commodity crop across the globe because of the climate impacts. In Brazil, for instance, we have 30% yield loss because of intensive frost from climate change. And the price inflation went really up. And we did an experiment with Nespresso, the coffee company, where we planted a regenerative agroforestry coffee system near a farmer who had a 30% yield loss. And this farmer who was applying regenerative and agroforestry systems had zero impact because of the frost. So if you look at the balance sheet when such climate impacts cause to farmers, this will be the biggest indicator of economic success for farmers to realize the benefits for regenerative and agroforestry systems. Moving away from monoculture is key. Which kind of investor invests in one single company, right? So why should a farmer invest in one single crop? So that's one of the things that is very important. And there's of course other source of like economic benefits that you can add to the equation, but I'll stop here because I think there's a lot of other panelists. We have rich content for us to talk about the other topics. So thank you.
No, thank you, Felipe. Thank you so much. I think it's good just highlighting that when thinking about the economics to have a long-term view. I think you highlighted about the climate resilience, right? Something that when we do economic models, sometimes we don't put that into the economic models when we think about the economics, right? But really in the world that we are today, to understand the benefit of going regenerative, what it has on the resilience of the crop, right? And secondly, to think about the system to diversify the revenue, right? Beyond just the cash crop alone, right? Because the cost, as you mentioned, I think we had a discussion, it does take more cost, right? Especially upfront when you started the practice. Thank you. And hearing from Pak Pur, right, from API, one of the challenges is about paradigm shift, right? How do you convince, economic is one, right? But then how do you shift the paradigm from the entrepreneurs? It can be like new entrepreneurs or it can be incumbent companies to pursue these opportunities. And with this, I would go to Juliana. I think with your experience in Latin America, finding entrepreneurs, either it's incumbent businesses or new entrepreneurs to pursue this new business model, right? What is your observations in terms of, especially with working with incumbents, how do you shift their paradigm and pursue, so that they would pursue these opportunities? Please.
Thank you, Idar. I think in relation to your question and to make a link with the examples that the others are bringing, because we've been talking about or seeing examples in agroforestry systems. So I've mentioned a project that we have been supporting in the Amazon, and that has there's two ways of looking at paradigm shift in this very specific example. I think the one has to deal with the incumbent industry, so working again with cocoa and the cocoa industry and the sector and the value chain. It's very much about making the entire value chain understand that they need to be on board in the arrangement in order to create safety and to reduce risk and to help with the second paradigm shift, which I understand probably Felipe deals a lot with as well, which is working with the producers on the ground. So in that specific case, it's an area where most of the smallholder farmers have been using the land for cattle ranching, have been deforesting the land for cattle ranching for livelihood purposes mostly, because we're talking about smallholders. And they do want to engage with cocoa. They do want to work with cocoa. They want, and they've been showing the willingness to develop the agroforestry systems as well, because you can obviously have cocoa without the agroforestry system, but how do you actually go a step beyond? And I think it's key that we have been bringing the industry and the trader and technical assistance along, because that shows the commitment and that improves the engagement of those smallholders on the ground, because that applies in costs, that applies in changing sometimes their own activity. And what we've been experiencing, so this project exists for many years. Partnerships for Forests have joined to scale up a few of the components, including the gender component, including the technical assistance, and also looking at how to improve access to credit to those smallholders. So because it's a long-lasting project, you can see results, and it's really interesting to talk to people on the ground and see the shift of smallholders like that today can say, I've shifted from this old vision of how to use the land. And again, they're not traditional people from the Amazon that have natural link to the forest system. They're normally people that have migrated to start farming. So it's quite touching to see that they've now understand that working with agroforestry, working with cocoa, and working more in balance with the forest is actually more profitable, and it's better for their own livelihoods.
Yeah, thank you. And would like to ask the questions, do you find or do you believe the model is scalable? And if you can share kind of an example where you've seen the model has the opportunities or it's already at scale, right? One of the questions from the business community is whether the solution is scalable or not. Can you share a little bit about that, Juliana?
Well, I think it is. I'm not an economic by training, so I think it's a tough question. And if the business community is asking that themselves, and you mentioned pioneers, I'm not a pioneer myself. Yeah. I just speak on behalf. But what we've been seeing, Brazil has a strong tradition in working with what we call socio-environmental entrepreneurial ecosystem. And now we've been framing it more into the bioeconomy or the biodiversity economy. And what we do see is that, yes, if there are a lot of very well-rooted value chains of forest-based products that have been able to scale. I think the acai, it's an interesting example again, that have reached international markets, but it's a long-lasting commitment that you have to do with the communities, with building the business, and valuing this vision, because again, it is a very powerful narrative fight if you put those initiatives against big agribusiness, commercial, which are very scalable in itself, commodity-driven systems. So it's also a matter of a vision, a country vision towards that economy.
And interesting to see, like, the way to make the shift happens and to make the solution scalable, you need to bring everyone or enough people within the value chain to get along. And it does require extra support because this is something new, right? The support is important because seeing is believing, right? To make sure that there's enough kind of support at the beginning so that people see that this is possible before it scales, right? So thank you for the explanations. Professor Dodik, if I may, this is really on your alley, right? This regenerative approach, as you mentioned, agroforestry, right? It lies between forestry and agriculture, right? And if you see like in KADIN, for example, and in the ministry there, you know, forestry and agriculture are different ministries. Even in universities are different majors, right? But it sounds like we need these two majors, two divisions to work together, right? So do you see that it is needed for these two to work together? And how do we make it work so that we have all the capabilities needed to make the solution work on the ground?
Yeah, I think it is important to think about collaboration, not about competition. Yeah, agriculture and forestry for a long time in Indonesia is like a competitors. But since now, we have to start with collaboration. Agroforestry is the real collaboration between agricultural and forestry sector. It is not easy. But if you ask me whether Indonesia is agricultural country or not, I will say no. Why? Because the percentage of the agricultural land, allocated agricultural land in Indonesia is only 20%. Yeah, about 40 million hectare only. Our land surface is about 190 million hectare, and we allocated for agriculture only 40 million hectare. It has included oil palm, yeah, about 16 million hectare already. And the sawah, paddy rice field, 10 million hectare. And the number of agricultural lands is decreasing and decreasing. So how we can achieve the target of swasembada, of self-sufficiency of the food? Yeah, not only rice actually. We have a pajale babe tepi, ya, padi, jagung, kedelai, bawang merah, tebu dan daging sapi. Ya. So to translate in English, ya, padi is rice, ya. Jagung is corn, ya, and bawang merah is onion, and then cabai is chili, ya, tebu is sugarcane, and daging sapi is beef. Yeah. So it is a huge targets for the self-sufficiency of Indonesia. How about the land allocated for agriculture? Only 20%. Is it big? No. I would say no. Australia allocated more than 50% of their surface land for agriculture. How about the size? More than 370,000 hectare. 370 million hectare. Correct me if I am wrong. Yeah. US also allocated about 50% of their surface land for agriculture. Yeah, 100 hectares. So more than 10 times, I think, compared to the land allocated for Indonesia. So even though Australia, US is a developed country, then they still export many agricultural products to Indonesia. Yeah, soybean, for example. Yeah, we have a crisis of tempe and tahu right now. Yeah, because most of soybean is still imported from US and other, gandum, for example, wheat, for example. So I don't think we have to convert our forest, no. But we have to share our forest, mainly the degraded forest, also for the food, for the agriculture also. We have to share. We have a 35 million hectare of degraded forest that is unproductive not for social, economic, and also ecology, of course, because it is degraded forest. So we have to improve the quality of the degraded forest, not only in the forest trees, but also have to replant with other commercial trees, yeah, commercial products, food products also. And according to my research in several areas in Indonesia, it is clearly that the benefits from the multi-purpose forest is higher single products, mainly timber.
Okay.
So I think we have to do collaboration instead of competition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Pak, for reminding that the collaborations between functions, and it's about sharing the space within the forest and do it in a regenerative way. Do we still have time for questions from the floor, Hani? We're good? We're good? Okay. So thank you. I think with that it concludes our conversations for the sessions. So let's give a round of applause for our distinguished panelists. Thank you so much. Pak Onte, Juliana, Felipe, Pak Dodik. I think after this we have, I will give the mic to you, please. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the participants and the pavilion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all the audience and distinguished speakers. Before we end this session, let's take a pictures together.